I remember that moment with a clarity that still cuts like a blade. The sun hung mercilessly overhead, the heat so fierce even the pavement seemed to tremble. But it wasn't the heat that made my chest tighten. It was what stood right in front of me. A Doberman puppy, not even 4 months old, straining to drag a cart piled high with jagged stones. The leather strap across its chest was too big, biting into its ribs and leaving red welts that bled. Its small legs shook under the impossible weight. The body was thin, ribs pushing against the skin like wires about to snap. The black coat, once glossy, maybe beautiful, was now dulled with dust, hiding how frail the pup truly was. Behind it walked a man, broad-shouldered, skin burned by the sun, a whip dangling from his hand. He moved at ease, untouched by the suffering right in front of him. To him, that little dog wasn't a living creature. It was a tool, something that had to learn to work. I grew up in the countryside. I'd seen horses pull plows, oxen strain in the fields, even mules dragging carts. But this wasn't labor. This was torment, a punishment disguised as teaching. I froze. The heat from the asphalt burned up my arms and shoulders, yet inside I felt cold. Not the cold of wind, but the kind that floods you when your soul wants to scream, but your body can't move fast enough. My name is Noah Carter. I am a 35-year-old freelance photographer, or more truthfully, a runaway. I once had everything: a stable job in Seattle, an apartment overlooking the bay, dinner parties full of shallow laughter. Then one day I walked away. I wanted something real, something that wasn't drowned in neon light and empty words. My old Bronco had carried me down red dust highways, through towns so forgotten even GPS hesitated to guide me. I thought I was ready for decay, for the overlooked corners of America. But I hadn't expected to find it here, in Red Hollow, a dead town wedged between Colorado's loneliest highways. And I never imagined the thing that would take my breath away would be a puppy pulling a cart of stone. Its chest heaved like a bellows. Oversized paws stumbled across cracked ground. And still, it pulled. Something in my own chest tore open. I don't know when my camera slipped from my hands. All I know is I heard my own voice, rough, shaking, tear through the heat. "Hey!" The man's head snapped up, his eyes cold as steel, and right then, the puppy collapsed. Its small body convulsed, each breath shallow, fading. No bark, no cry. Just a look. Eyes heavy with sorrow, asking a question without words. Will you walk away, like everyone else? The man spat out a dry laugh. What do you want? I should have stayed quiet. I should have thought it through, but the words ripped out of me. You planning to break its spine? His mouth curled. No. It just has to learn, to earn its keep. This is how you teach. My eyes caught the whip in his hand, the dried blood on the pup's paw, the strap cutting into its throat. I understood. This wasn't a place for reason. This was ground ruled by one law. The strong decide. He stepped closer, taller than I expected, sun-scorched face pocked with old scars. You're not from around here, are you? No. Then let me give you advice. In Red Hollow, you mind your own business. His gaze flicked to my dusty truck, then down to the camera still hanging on my chest. He lifted the whip and snapped it, not at the dog, but against the ground, inches from its head. Snap! The sound split the air. The puppy jolted up, staggering. I wanted to speak again, but in his eyes I saw no fear, no regret, only challenge, a cold dare. Go ahead, try me. My mouth went dry. I stood there, watching him drag that cart of stone, with a small life stumbling behind. broken but with no other choice. And in that moment, I knew, if I walked away now, the story would end here. I sat frozen in the driver's seat, my hands gripping the wheel so tight the knuckles went white. My chest still echoed with the image of that puppy collapsing into the dirt and the way it looked at me. That look wouldn't leave my head, even long after the man's shadow disappeared into the haze. I should have done something. I should have torn the whip from his hand, ripped the strap from the pup's chest. But I hadn't. I'd stood there like a coward. And now the shame of it burned inside me, steady and relentless, like a fire smoldering underground. I lifted my camera and replayed the footage I'd captured without even realizing it. The frame shook, the lens blurred with dust, but the scene was unmistakable. The pup pulling that cart of stone, stumbling, then collapsing, and beside it, the man's shadow, whip in hand, walking as if nothing was out of place. I stared at the tiny screen and asked myself, who would believe me? Who would care? The world was drowning in headlines, in images, in clips. What was one more? Another dog beaten, another story swallowed up by noise. Would anyone stop for this? I let out a bitter laugh. I'd left Seattle searching for something real, and the moment reality stood right in front of me, I shrank back like an outsider. What was I, if not just another cold lens, recording and then walking away? Evening spread across the sky, turning the ground amber. But inside me, only darkness thickened. I couldn't turn the car around. I couldn't pretend I hadn't seen. That night, I rented a cheap room in Marigold Springs, a forgotten town a few miles outside Red Hollow. The place reeked of stale cigarettes. The stench sank deep into the walls. The bed was stiff, the sheets stained. I lay there wide-eyed, sleepless. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the dogs, not accusing, not screaming, just asking, "Why did you leave?" By 2 a.m., I bolted upright, shirt clinging with sweat. I stared at myself in the cracked mirror. What looked back was a hollow man, eyes bruised with exhaustion. And I thought, if I don't go back, will I even recognize who I am? Morning came. I packed the Bronco, telephoto lens, memory cards, notebook, and a gallon of water. At a hardware store open 24 hours, I picked up a heavy pair of bolt cutters, thick enough to snap any chain. I knew this was reckless. A man like Earl Maddox almost certainly had a gun. If he caught me, I could die. But the dog's eyes had left me no other way out. I drove back toward Red Hollow, avoiding the main roads this time. I followed old dirt tracks marked on a folded paper map. With every mile, my pulse hammered harder. The sound filled my head like war drums calling me forward. From a distance, I saw his place, Earl Maddox's collapsing shack, rusted metal scattered in piles, a crooked dog pen in the barren yard. And there it was, the pup. This time, not pulling a cart. This time, chained to a bare iron stake under the sun. The collar around its neck weighed heavily. A plastic bowl lay flipped, empty, just out of reach. I lifted the camera. Click. One shot. Another. Its front leg limped, swollen, injured. Click. Earl yanked the chain so hard the dog fell flat, choking on dust. Click. No cry. No bark. Just ears pressed back, eyes squeezed shut. Enduring. Because that's all it knew. I stopped shooting. In that moment, I wasn't a photographer anymore. I was a witness. Each frame, each clip wasn't art. It was evidence, not for a gallery, but for a courtroom. So I watched. All day, I tracked him. Earl stepping in and out of the shack, planting himself on the porch, cigarette smoke curling, barking curses at the dog. The sun lowered, gold spilling across the dirt. The puppy's shadow stretched thin and long across the yard, like a stain nobody wanted to see. When night finally swallowed the shack, I saw his light go out. The house sank into pitch black. I went back to the Bronco and opened the trunk. Inside, the bolt cutters, a bag of soft food, a new collar, a pale blue leash. My hand trembled as I touched them. A question cut through my head. Are you out of your mind, Noah? Maybe. But then I looked back into the darkness to where the puppy trembled by the stake. It had no choice. I did. I drew a breath, closed my hand tight around the steel handles, and I knew. Tonight, I wasn't just going to stand there. The dashboard clock glowed 2:11 a.m. Outside, the world was swallowed in heavy darkness. No stars. The moon was buried under thick clouds, leaving Red Hollow draped in a cold, endless black. I tightened the straps of my backpack and pushed the door open. No flashlight, no phone, only my heartbeat, hammering in my chest, echoing like hollow drums across the still desert night. Every step felt like walking on broken glass. Dry twigs cracked beneath my boots, sharp in my ears. A thin wind slid past, whispering a warning. Careful. One wrong sound, and it all shatters. I crouched low, slipping through the torn gap in the wire fence. Each strand rattled with a metallic twang, like alarm bells striking my skull. I froze flat against the dirt, waited. Nothing, just silence. From the shadows, I saw it. The little Doberman curled against the iron stake. Its body shivered with each gust of night wind. In my eyes, it was nothing but a dying ember, about to fade. I dropped to my knees, maybe 10 feet away. My hand eased a pouch of soft food from the pack, laying it gently on the ground. The scent drifted into the night. A faint whimper broke the stillness. Its ears twitched. It lifted its head. Those tired, blurred eyes locked on mine. Suspicion. Hope. As if asking, "Are you real? Or just another nightmare?" "Shh. It's me," I whispered, my own voice trembling, unfamiliar. "The one who promised to come back." I stretched out a bare hand, palm open. It hesitated. Then, it inched forward. Another step. And finally, it pushed its nose against my skin. Cold. Damp. The touch made my throat close. I fed it a morsel. It hesitated, then swallowed whole. I brushed its neck. The skin was dry, chilled, the collar heavy, biting deep, leaving raw streaks of blood. I pulled the bolt cutters free. Every movement felt like lifting a stone. I set the jaws against the chain. I knew the SNAP would split the night wide open. "It's okay. Almost there," I whispered to calm us both. I pressed down, my arms shook, and then, snap! The crack rang out, sharp as gunfire. The dog jolted and the chain dropped heavily into the dirt. At that instant, a light flared inside the shack. A yellow beam cut across the yard. The door slammed open. Dogs barked wildly. A man's roar shattered the silence. "Who's out there?" "I've got a gun." Ice shot through my spine. No thought left. I scooped the pup into my arms. Heavier than I expected, body stiff, but I held tight. I ran. My boots hammered the ground, each step like a sledge on my knees. Behind me, metal clanging, dogs exploding in fury, Maddox's voice raging louder. I barreled through piles of rusted junk, scraped across the torn fence. The wire sliced my shoulder, burning. I didn't stop. The Bronco was close now, just a few dozen yards. My chest tore with each breath. I didn't dare look back. I couldn't face the shape of a man charging with a rifle. The pup's breath pulsed hot against my neck. It didn't fight, didn't cry, only trembled, pressing its face into my chest as if I were the last refuge left. The truck. At last. I lunged forward, fumbling the keys with shaking hands. The door swung open. I set him on the passenger seat, slammed the door, and climbed behind the wheel. The engine roared. I jammed the pedal. Tires ripped dirt, and the Bronco surged into the dark. I didn't touch the headlights. Not until we were 2 miles out of town did I flick the switch. White beams carved open the empty road. I turned my head. He was staring at me, not with panic, just dazed, disbelieving. I reached across, touched his paw. He didn't pull away. "I came back," I whispered, "and we're leaving this place." For good. The Bronco rattled forward, plunging into the starless night. Behind us, Red Hollow dissolved into shadow. Ahead, the road stretched endlessly. But on the seat beside me, a trembling life held on. And I knew everything had just changed. The dashboard clock glowed 2:11 a.m. Outside, the world was swallowed in heavy darkness. No stars. The moon was buried under thick clouds, leaving Red Hollow draped in a cold, endless black. I tightened the straps of my backpack and pushed the door open. No flashlight, no phone, only my heartbeat, hammering in my chest, echoing like hollow drums across the still desert night. Every step felt like walking on broken glass. Dry twigs cracked beneath my boots, sharp in my ears. A thin wind slid past, whispering a warning. Careful. One wrong sound, and it all shatters. I crouched low, slipping through the torn gap in the wire fence. Each strand rattled with a metallic twang, like alarm bells striking my skull. I froze flat against the dirt, waited. Nothing, just silence. From the shadows, I saw it. The little Doberman curled against the iron stake. Its body shivered with each gust of night wind. In my eyes, it was nothing but a dying ember, about to fade. I dropped to my knees, maybe 10 feet away. My hand eased a pouch of soft food from the pack, laying it gently on the ground. The scent drifted into the night. A faint whimper broke the stillness. Its ears twitched. It lifted its head. Those tired, blurred eyes locked on mine. Suspicion. Hope. As if asking, "Are you real? Or just another nightmare?" "Shh. It's me," I whispered, my own voice trembling, unfamiliar. "The one who promised to come back." I stretched out a bare hand, palm open. It hesitated. Then, it inched forward. Another step. And finally, it pushed its nose against my skin. Cold. Damp. The touch made my throat close. I fed it a morsel. It hesitated, then swallowed whole. I brushed its neck. The skin was dry, chilled, the collar heavy, biting deep, leaving raw streaks of blood. I pulled the bolt cutters free. Every movement felt like lifting a stone. I set the jaws against the chain. I knew the SNAP would split the night wide open. "It's okay. Almost there," I whispered to calm us both. I pressed down, my arms shook, and then, snap! The crack rang out, sharp as gunfire. The dog jolted and the chain dropped heavily into the dirt. At that instant, a light flared inside the shack. A yellow beam cut across the yard. The door slammed open. Dogs barked wildly. A man's roar shattered the silence. "Who's out there?" "I've got a gun." Ice shot through my spine. No thought left. I scooped the pup into my arms. Heavier than I expected, body stiff, but I held tight. I ran. My boots hammered the ground, each step like a sledge on my knees. Behind me, metal clanging, dogs exploding in fury, Maddox's voice raging louder, I barreled through piles of rusted junk, scraped across the torn fence. The wire sliced my shoulder, burning. I didn't stop. The Bronco was close now, just a few dozen yards. My chest tore with each breath. I didn't dare look back. I couldn't face the shape of a man charging with a rifle. The pup's breath pulsed hot against my neck. It didn't fight, didn't cry, only trembled, pressing its face into my chest as if I were the last refuge left. The truck, at last. I lunged forward, fumbling the keys with shaking hands. The door swung open. I set him on the passenger seat, slammed the door, and climbed behind the wheel. The engine roared. I jammed the pedal. Tires ripped dirt, and the Bronco surged into the dark. I didn't touch the headlights. Not until we were 2 miles out of town did I flick the switch. White beams carved open the empty road. I turned my head. He was staring at me, not with panic, just dazed, disbelieving. I reached across, touched his paw. He didn't pull away. "I came back," I whispered, "and we're leaving this place. For good." The Bronco rattled forward, plunging into the starless night. Behind us, Red Hollow dissolved into shadow. Ahead, the road stretched endlessly. But on the seat beside me, a trembling life held on. And I knew everything had just changed. 14 days after that night, Scout and I had settled into a strange rhythm. I rented a small log cabin a few miles outside Marigold Springs, tucked deep among the tall pines. By day, I drove into town for supplies. By night, Scout curled at my feet, sometimes jolting awake, panting from dreams. Whenever that happened, I simply laid my hand on his back and waited until his breathing steadied again. I thought maybe we could live like that quietly, until one morning the phone rang. On the screen, Deputy Arland Castillo, county office. I stepped out onto the porch, closed the door behind me, and answered. His voice was low, firm. "Mr. Carter?" "Yes, that's me. We received all the photos and video you sent. The investigative unit went to Red Hollow yesterday morning." My heart slammed. I glanced through the window. Scout lay stretched across the armchair, head resting on the armrest, eyes half closed. "And—" My voice cracked. Castillo paused, then said, "We found the site exactly as you described. The stake, the chain, the rusted kennel, plenty of drag marks. Neighbors confirmed Earl Maddox regularly beat and starved his dogs. He was arrested this morning. He's in custody on felony animal cruelty charges. I hadn't realized I was gripping the phone so hard my palm was slick with sweat. My lips moved, but no words came. Castillo went on. "As for the animal, there's no legal reason to hold him. If you're willing, we'd like to transfer guardianship to you. Would you like to adopt?" I turned. Scout had lifted his head, meeting my eyes through the glass. His ears twitched slightly. No trace of suspicion left, only waiting. I didn't need time to think. "Yes, I'll take him." Silence filled the line. Then Castillo answered. "We'll complete the paperwork." "Congratulations, Mr. Carter. You've given him a new chance." The phone slipped from my hand onto the wooden table. I braced myself on the railing and pulled in a deep breath. The sky was clean and blue. Wind moved through the pines, carrying the sharp tang of sap. And in all that, I heard only one rhythm. My own heartbeat, steady for the first time in years. Scout trotted onto the porch and shyly pressed his head against my leg. I bent down, stroked his neck, whispered, "We're safe now. He'll never touch you again." He looked up, eyes clearer, brighter. For the first time, I caught a spark of trust. That day, I printed every photo, copied the videos onto a USB, and handed it all to the county office. Each frame was a blade against the town's silence. People looked, people nodded, and this time no one turned away. That afternoon, the local news ran the story. Earl Maddox's face filled the screen, gray, stiff. Across the bottom, animal cruelty suspect arrested, Red Hollow. I shut it off immediately. I didn't need to see him again. All I needed was the knowledge. He was no longer free. That night, Scout and I sat on the porch. A thin moon hung above the ridgeline. He rested his head on my lap, breathing slow and steady. I ran my hand down his back. No longer just skin and bone, now muscle growing strong beneath a smoother coat. The memory flickered in my mind. The snap of the chain, the light bursting on, the shouts ripping the dark. It was closed now. Done. But in Scout's eyes, I saw something more. He no longer lived inside that nightmare. For the first time in years, I whispered a thank you. I didn't know to whom. Maybe to those small eyes that had forced me to turn back that night. In those first days at the cabin, Scout was like a shadow. Even with the door wide open, even with a fresh bowl of food waiting, he clung to my side, silent, as if letting go for even a second would drag him back into the darkness of Red Hollow. I didn't push him. I just sat on the wooden floor, leaned against the wall, read a few pages from an old book, and sometimes mumbled stories about photo trips through Texas or Arizona. I had no idea how much he understood. But he listened. Or at least, he stayed. On the third day, I noticed something different. He ate more slowly, no longer tearing into food like it might vanish. He paused, lifting his eyes to me now and then, as if testing the idea that this meal belonged to him, that no hand was coming to snatch it away. By the seventh day, when I came back from the gas station with a bag of supplies, Scout was standing at the door. He didn't wag his tail, but his eyes weren't pinned to the ground anymore. He looked straight at me, not wary, expectant. I'll never forget the 12th morning. I woke to a strange weight across my legs. I opened my eyes. Scout had climbed onto the bed, curled tight against my side, his nose pressed lightly to my shirt. His breathing is even, warm. I placed a hand on his back, felt the steady rhythm of his heart, and suddenly I broke down. Not from pity, not from guilt, but because he had chosen me. From that day on, the cabin wasn't silent anymore. Scout began roaming, sniffing corners, and inspecting old chairs. Sometimes he stretched across the kitchen floor, ears twitching whenever I dropped a spoon. Sometimes he sat on the porch, watching the pines, eyes far away, but no longer afraid. One afternoon, I left the back door open. No leash. Just sat on the steps. Scout hesitated, then stepped outside. He sniffed the grass, nosed at tree roots, and even chased a clumsy grasshopper. I didn't call him, didn't coax him, and when he turned back, ears perked, eyes shining, I knew. For the first time, he was exploring the world for himself. At night, he rested his head on my lap. His coat, once dull with dust and blood, grew sleek again, glowing under the yellow lamp. My hand ran down his back, and I felt more than sharp bones. I felt strength returning. But more important than his body was his gaze. The day I found him, his eyes were hollow, dark, bottomless. Now, when he looked at me, there was warmth, a faint spark, fragile, but real. One night, the wind rattled the windows and shook the cabin walls. Scout, startled, let out a low whine. I dropped beside him and wrapped my arms around him. "It's okay," I whispered. "No one can hurt you now." He pressed his head into my chest, his stiff body slowly softening. For the first time, I heard him sigh, not in fear, but in release. I realized then, It wasn't just Scout healing. I was too. I had left Seattle to escape, thinking I needed to find the ruined edges of the country. But what I really needed was to find the quiet humanity I'd buried inside myself. Scout was bringing it back, piece by piece. A month later, one early morning, I watched him sprint across the yard, long legs strong, chasing his own shadow on the grass. His bark rang out. Not a whimper, not a growl, but a pure, innocent sound. I stood on the porch, smiling, and felt tears sting my eyes. I never thought a bark could undo me. That's when I understood. Scout was no longer just a rescued dog. He was alive. He was trusting, and in the process, he was teaching me how to trust again, too. We left the cabin on a misty morning. No reason. No one is forcing us. It was simply time. I loaded the dusty Bronco, slammed the tailgate shut, and turned back. Scout had already climbed into the passenger seat, as if that spot had always been his. We had no map, no plan. I only knew one thing. I couldn't go back to Seattle. That city, with its meetings and its dinners filled with hollow laughter, belonged to another life. I wasn't the same man anymore. The road stretched wide, leading us to a small town by a lake. I rented a motel room, pulled my camera out after weeks of neglect. But this time, I wasn't chasing the perfect shot. I only wanted to capture Scout running on the grass, tail wagging at the sight of waves lapping the shore. I noticed something new. Scout no longer curled into himself. At night, he sprawled across the bed, legs stretched out, breathing calmly. Sometimes a low rumble rose from his chest. Not fear, but comfort. A sound I never thought could make a room feel so full. Weeks later, the police called again. Earl Maddox had confessed. He'd signed papers forfeiting all rights to animals, forever. Legally, Scout was mine. I sat there stunned for a moment, then turned. Scout was stretched out on the porch, eyes closed in the sun. I called softly, "Scout." He lifted his head. His eyes were clear now, no shadows clinging. I whispered, "You have a home." That afternoon, I opened the back door without a leash. Scout stepped out, calm, like a free traveler. He nosed through the grass, then suddenly bolted, racing across the yard, ears flying back. The evening sun poured gold across his back. I raised the camera and clicked. Not to post, not to sell, just to remind myself. A life once chained, now knew freedom. That night, we sat on the porch. The lake lay still as glass. The full moon hung above, silver light spreading over his black and tan coat. Scout rested his head on my leg. My hand traced his back, and this time there were no sharp bones, only a body returning to strength. I used to think I saved him. But the truth was, he saved me. He pulled me out of days gone hollow, out of the belief that I was only a bystander, someone who just recorded suffering through a lens. Scout made me stop. Look. Act. If I could name this chapter of my life, I'd call it the moment I learned that saving a life means saving the part of yourself that still believes in humanity. Scout lifted his head and met my eyes. No words, no language, just a gaze. Deep, warm. I understood. He had forgiven the world. He had chosen to live. I smiled, asked softly, "Ready to keep going?" He wagged his tail, and I knew. We were both ready. Some journeys don't begin with maps or plans. They begin the moment you can't turn your back on a life in need. Scout isn't just a rescued dog. He is proof that love, even late, can mend what seemed forever broken. If you've ever saved an animal, you know. If you haven't, remember this. Sometimes your presence is the only reason a small life doesn't give up. I once thought I was only a bystander. All I could do was raise a camera, take a shot, and walk away. But Scout proved me wrong. A voiceless, beaten, starving pup still had the power to shake me awake, to make me choose between silence and action. And in that moment, I found the part of me I thought I'd lost. When I watched Scout asleep, his head heavy on my leg, I realized something. To save a life, you don't have to be a hero. You just have to show up. You just have to say, "I won't leave you." And if you're hearing this, I hope you remember. There are countless Scouts out there. Small lives with no voice, but eyes that still plead. You can be the reason they live. You can be the one door that opens out of the dark. Tell me your story. Have you ever saved a dog, a cat, or any creature at all? Share it in the comments. I promise I'll read every word, because every story is a piece of hope, and hope only grows when we share it. If Scout's journey touched you, please like, share, and subscribe. It helps us tell more stories, so no life is ever left behind in silence. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for listening, for believing, and for knowing that every life deserves love.